All right, to start, we're going to take off our 5 19mm lug nuts. Remove the wheel. Okay, so now what we're going to do, we're going to use some penetrating oil. We're going to try to spray it along here where the threads are, up here where the threads are, and then right in between where this jam nut and the tie rod end meet. So now I'm going to use a nice long set of pliers, and I'm going to try to break this jam nut free. So it's on there. There we go. It's moving nice and easy. So now that we broke the jam nut free, we want to make sure that we keep that exactly where it is, because the next step is where it becomes a little tricky. Generally speaking, you'd want to replace the inner tie rod and the outer tie rod at the same time. If for some reason you're not, there's something that you're going to need to worry about. You need to unscrew the inner tie rod end from the outer tie rod end right here. To do that, we're going to continue with our large pliers. I'm going to grip onto it like this, and then I'm just going to keep turning it and turning it and turning it until this comes completely unscrewed from the outer tie rod end. So it feels like it's off. There it is. Awesome. So now what we need to do is measure from the end of this jam nut, right here where it connected up against the outer tie rod end, to the end of the inner tie rod end. So take your measuring tape, go just like that, and then take a look. In my instance, it's 1 3/4 inches. So 1 3/4 inches is how far I'm going to put the new tie rod end jam nut. So now that we know that it's 1 3/4 inch for my application, yours may be a little bit different, I'm going to remove this jam nut. You're going to notice you have a clamp on the outer edge of this power steering bellows boot here. And then there's going to be another clamp on the inner edge, which I'll show you in a second. So we're going to use some needle nose pliers, and we're going to remove this clamp. Give it a squeeze. If you look at your bellows boot, you're going to see this little tab, and this just goes to this clamp that comes all the way around. It's kind of like a squeeze clamp, and it's just a single-use clamp. So once you break it off, it's garbage, recycle it, and get ready to use something different to reclamp it back on. I'm going to use my pry bar, go right up against that, and I'm going to give it a couple bonks on the end and see if I can break it free. Ah, there it is. If you can't get it off with a pry bar, you could use some cutters, whatever you need to do to get it off. So grab your bellows boot, give it a little twist, and then give it a yank. It should want to come right off the inner tie rod end. There we go. So now I'm going to use some long pliers again. Grab right onto that inner portion of the inner tie rod end, grip it, break it free. Once it's broken free, we should be able to unscrew it right from the power steering rack. Perfect. So we're going to take our new inner tie rod end. We're just going to use some of the packet of grease that it came with. Just go right along that socket. We want to fill it in as much as possible. I'm going to use every bit of this grease because, well, why not? Squish it in there. That's going to keep the moisture out and keep everything lubricated. That looks pretty great. Leave a little bit. Go right along this area right here. That's where the bellows boot's going to ride when we go for the install. Take your inner tie rod end. Screw it right into that power steering rack. We're going to bottom it right out. We're going to grab our long pliers. Get them set up. Here we go. That feels like it's bottomed out pretty well. Just give it a teeny bit more. Awesome. All right, so we're just going to use a wire tie, and we're going to go right around this. We're going to keep it nice and loose, but not to the point that it's going to fall off. There we are. This is going to work as our clamp. Slide this over your tie rod boot. There. That should go right on. There it is. So let's slide this right over the end of the rack there. Make sure it's on as far as it'll go. It needs to be sitting in the groove 100%. That looks pretty great. Now we need to make sure that this wire tie is as tight as it can go, and then we'll trim it. So we've got our little clamp. Just going to grab it with my needle nose pliers, slide it right over, and try to match it up with where it was sitting on the bellows boot originally. So here we go. Let's spray this down with a little bit of copper never seize. We're going to take our brand new jam nut, just put it on there a whole bunch of threads. We need to get this so that the outer portion of this nut is the same distance to the outer portion of the inner tie rod end as it was originally. And that's going to get our alignment as close as possible until we can get it down to the alignment shop. I'm shooting for 1 3/4 inches. That's where mine was at. Yours may be different. Perfect. Now we're going to screw this into our outer tie rod end. We're going to take our 21. Take this off of here. Take your outer tie rod end and screw it on here. Okay. Take this, put it into your knuckle. So now we're going to take our castle nut, start this on here, and we're just going to bottom it out. Now we'll torque this down to manufacturer specifications. We're going to tighten this down to 30 foot-pounds. Now that it's torqued, you want to make sure that the castle opening of the nut is matched up with the hole on the stud. If it's not, you need to continue tightening until the next closest slot lines up. Pretty close. We're going to take our cotter pin, slide it through the hole, bend it over. And this cotter pin just ensures that the nut cannot come loose. At this point, we're going to tighten up our jam nut. Make sure your tie rod's pretty much as flush as it can be with the knuckle. We're going to grab our wheel, get it back up on here, start our lug nuts on, and then we'll bottom them out and torque them down to manufacturer specifications. We're going to torque these down to 100 foot-pounds. All right, now down the road you go to the alignment shop.